It's white.
Okay, thank you. So I was saying that we have some modal verbs for permission, right? And we said that we have can, be allowed to, and may when we are talking about permissions. Okay, so we have the present and we have the past. We are going to compare how do we say this in the present and how can we say this in the past. Okay, so the first sentence is I can go to the party tonight. So I have the permission to go to the party tonight. Okay, and in the past we can say, how can we say this sentence in the past?
I can.
When
I
I
could.
could.
We change the verb can to the past. Okay, so I could go to the party last night. I could go to the party last night. So the only thing we have to do is to change the modal verb to the past. Okay, and of course the time expression here. Let's see be allowed to. Okay, we said that when we are talking about be allowed to, we need to conjugate the verb to be. Okay, in the present, we conjugate the verb to be, and here I have an example. It says, we are allowed to take pictures. Okay, so this is in the present. And in the past, we need to change the verb to be to the past, I said, right? So we can say, we were allowed to take pictures. So the only thing we have to do is to change the verb to be to the past. Okay? And you need to conjugate the verb too. For example, if I want to say she, I need to conjugate the verb and I say, she was allowed to take pictures. She is allowed to take pictures. Okay? I need to conjugate the verb according to the time, present or past, or according to the subject of the sentence. Okay?
Teacher,
Yes?
that example in present, Percy estaba preguntando por qué el verbo allow is with the ending ed.
Ok. Eso significa que es permitido hacer algo. Permitido. Allowed. Permitido. Es un adjetivo. ¿Ok? Be allowed to. Siempre va a estar así, con ed. Cuando estamos hablando de estos modal verbs. ¿Ok? ¿Eso era lo que me preguntaba Percy?
Sí, decía que está en presente porque termina en ed como si fuera pasado.
Si se da cuenta, en el presente y en el pasado los dos terminan en ed. Lo único que cambia es el verbo to be. ¿Ok? Allowed. Allowed to. ¿Ok? So, then we have here the next modal verb, may. Okay? We use may when we are talking about the present. For example, may I borrow your pencil, please? Okay, can you give me the permission to borrow your pencil? Okay, may, but when we talk about the past, we use might. Might I ask your name? Remember that. May in the present, but in the past, for permission, we use might. Okay? So these are all the modal verbs that we can use for permission in the present and in the past. Okay? Any questions until here? Let's go with prohibition. Okay? So what modal verbs do we have for prohibition? What do you think?
Must.
Mustn't? Must or mustn't?
Mustn't.
Mustn't.
Can't.
mustn't,
Okay.
don't,
Yes, we have can, be allowed to, and must. Okay, of course, these are in the negative form when we are talking about prohibition. Let's see some examples here. Here we have the present and the past too. I can't go to the party tonight. I am grounded. Estoy castigado. Okay, I can't go. And I couldn't go to the party last night. I was grounded. No pude ir porque estaba castigado. Okay, I didn't have the permission. Okay, I was prohibited to go to the party. Okay, then we have be allowed. Okay, but in the negative form, we are not allowed to take pictures. No se nos permite tomar fotos. We are not allowed. And in the past, ¿cómo podríamos esto en el pasado? How can we say
We were
this?
not allowed to take pictures.
We were not allowed to take pictures. Okay, so as you can see, it's exactly the same. The only thing that we change is the verb to be in the past form. Okay, we can say we aren't allowed or we weren't allowed if we want to conjugate, sorry, to contract. If we want to contract the verb, we can say we are not or we aren't, we weren't, okay? Then we have must, but in the negative form, we can say, tell them they mustn't they mustn't make too much noise. Tell them they mustn't make too much noise, okay? And we don't have mustn't in the past, okay? We have only in the present, okay? So these are the modal verbs that we can use for prohibition, okay? I want you to tell me some prohibitions that we have here in the class. What are some prohibitions that we have here in the class?
Don't eat at the class.
Okay, but I want you to use these modal verbs that we have here.
We
You
can
We can't,
leave late.
we can't arrive late. We
Yes.
can't enter late to the class, okay? Any other? Any other
Teacher,
prohibition?
we mustn't connect to the class after 15 minutes.
Okay, yes. We mustn't connect our computers to the class after 15 minutes. Yes. What about we are not allowed? We aren't allowed to, what can you say?
Can I?
We aren't allowed to turn off the camera.
We aren't allowed to turn off the cameras. Very good, very good. And what about the permissions? I want you to use the same with permission. What can you say here? Permissions that you have here in the class. What can you say with permission?
I can make questions about the topic.
We can make questions about the topic. Very good. We are allowed to what? What can you say? We are allowed to. ¿Qué se les permite hacer en la clase?
It's allowed to participate.
We are allowed to participate. Yes, we are allowed to make sentences. Okay, very good. So let's see the next kind of modal verbs. We are going to talk about obligation. Okay, when we talk about obligation, we use have to or must. Okay, these are the modal verbs that we are going to use for obligation. Let's see, here we have the present and the past. You have to study for the test. Okay, so this is an obligation, you have to do it. Okay, and in the past, you had to study for the test in the past. What other obligation can you tell me about this class? What obligations do you have for this class?
We have to do our homework.
We have to do
You have
our
to do your
homework.
homework.
Yes, very good. You have to do your homework. Anything else that you can say?
Have to a conversation with my classmate.
You have to make conversations with your partner. You have to have a conversation with your partner. Yes. What about must? It says meat must be cooked thoroughly. Okay, this means very well. Very well. Meat must be cooked thoroughly.
O sea, bien cocido.
Yes,
como
very well.
dicen,
Debe estar cocinada muy bien. Okay,
teacher.
yes.
¿Y cómo dices 3/4?
What?
¿Cómo dices 3/4?
Let's see here. We are going to look for the meaning.
Okay.
Okay, then I'm going to look for the meaning, okay? Let's see here. So remember, we use must and have to when we are talking about obligation. Let's see here. When we have lack of obligation, when we don't have the obligation, we can use have to, for example, but we use have to in the negative form. You don't have to go to the party. It's not an obligation to go to the party. Okay? Or you didn't have to go to the party in the past. Okay? What are some things that are not an obligation here in the class? Something that is not an obligation. What can you say? Something that is not an obligation here in the class. What can you say? We don't have to what?
For example, speak totally in English.
Okay, but this is something that you have to do. You have to speak totally in English. Okay, but sometimes when you don't understand something, I have to say it in Spanish, or when you can't say something, you can say it in Spanish, right? Anything else?
We don't have to use an uniform, wear an
We don't have to wear a uniform, okay? It's not an obligation to wear a uniform, right? Something that you can say too is, we don't have to use a computer. You can have the classes in your cell phones, right? You don't have to, it's not an obligation, okay? Let's see here, another way in which we can say lack of obligation or obligation. We can use these two verbs, make and let, to talk about obligation or lack of obligation. Algo que es obligatorio o algo que no es obligatorio. Okay? So here we have the two forms, the present and the past. This is the structure that we use when we are talking about obligation or lack of obligation with make in the present. For example, and this is the structure that we use in the past. Okay? My parents make us to go to bed early. Okay, so this is an obligation. My parents make us to go to bed early. Okay, estamos expresando una obligación. Y en la forma negativa sería, my parents don't make us to go to bed early. Okay, esa sería una falta de obligación. O sea, algo que no es obligatorio. What can you say with make? Okay, for example, talking about your family, what can you say with make or with don't make? Okay, I want you to use make or don't make, talking about obligation or lack of obligation. What can you say in your family? What are some rules that you have?
Can I?
Yes, please.
My parents make me and my sister cook the dinner.
Okay, make me and my sister to cook dinner. Okay, very good. Anybody else? What about the negative form? Can you make a sentence with a negative form? Don't make? My parents don't make, no me hacen hacer esto, o me hacen hacer esto. ¿Qué podríamos decir? For example, you can say, my parents don't make me clean my bedroom. My parents don't make me clean my bedroom. No me obligan. Si yo quiero la limpio, o si no, no. Okay? And here we have exactly the same in the past. But the only difference is that we change the verb when we are talking about affirmative sentences, and we use the verb in the base form when we are talking in the negative form. Okay, for example, my parents made us to go to bed early. Okay, my parents didn't make us to go to bed early. Okay, so this is the only difference. Then we have with let. Okay, this is the formula that you are going to use with let. This is the structure, exactly the same that we have here with make. The only thing is we change let. We change the verb. And this is the form that you use for the past with let. For example, we have, they let us bring laptops at school. Okay, ellos nos dejan llevar laptops a la escuela, al colegio. Okay, en negativo sería, they don't let us bring laptops at school. Ellos no nos dejan, no nos permiten llevar. Okay, so here we have another one. My parents didn't let us watch TV until late. Okay, my parents didn't let us watch TV until late. O también pueden decir, my parents let us watch TV until late. Okay, so as you can see, the verb let is always the same, the present or in the past. But we change the verb make in the past, in affirmative sentences. We say made, okay? Something that I want you to notice is the form of the verb that we use after modal verbs. Recuerden que el verbo que viene seguido de un modal verb, okay, después del modal verb, siempre va en la forma base, okay, o en infinitivo. For example, here too, have to study, okay, be, en la forma base del verbo. Here we have in the next one, go, I can't go, take, and make, okay, siempre el verbo va en su forma base después de los modal verbs, okay. Any questions about this?
Teacher,
No.
I don't understand very well. What is the difference, or in what case I can use have to and must?
Okay, they are similar. We can interchange them. But generally, we use must to talk about signs or when we are talking about something that is external, an external obligation, okay? And we use have to when we are talking about personal obligations, okay? So, for example, here we have this explanation we have here. Let's see here. We're going to complete this and then we are going to read the explanation here, okay? It says, permission. We said that we use for permission, we use
Can.
can, right? And are or is allowed to. Prohibition, we use mustn't,
Can.
can't, and isn't or aren't
Allowed to.
Allow.
allowed to. Okay, must for obligation and
Have to.
Have to.
have to. Lack of obligation.
Don't have
Don't
to.
have to.
Don't have to. Okay, very good. So this is the explanation that your partner was looking for. It says, we usually use must on signs. Okay. ¿Recuerdan las signs que vimos? These are signs. Okay, we generally use must when we are talking about signs. And it says, when giving direct orders, cuando damos órdenes directas. And we tend to use have to talk about obligations in general. Okay, for example, personal obligations, as I said before. Okay, for example, I have to study is a personal obligation, right? So this is the difference between must and have to, okay? Let's see here. Let and make plus the object plus the verb. It says here, we use make to talk about obligation. Okay, can you give me an example of make that you have here? ¿Qué ejemplo podríamos poner acá?
They make us turn them off.
They make us turn them off as soon as we enter to the classroom, right? Very good. And then we use let to talk about permission or prohibition. Okay, here we have an example of prohibition. They don't let us use our cell phone in class. This is a prohibition, right? What about permission? I want you to tell me a sentence with permission. Let.
Or homeroom teacher. Let has used our cell phones.
Yes, our homeroom teacher lets us use our cell phones to access sites that are blocked on the computers, right? So this is a permission. In the affirmative way, when we use let, we are talking about permission. And when we use let in the negative form, we use this as a prohibition, okay? Good.